In a small, bustling office in downtown Chicago, a man named Mark stood with a mop in his hand, staring down at the tile floor of the bathroom. To him, it felt like an endless cycle of cleaning up. Day in and day out, Mark took on the task of keeping that bathroom spotless while others treated it like a forgotten corner. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting a harsh glow on the stark, white walls. Mark wrinkled his nose at the strong smell of chemicals mixed with something far less pleasant. Yet in that moment, he felt a strange sense of honor. He cleaned the bathroom not just for himself, but for everyone who worked in that building. A clean bathroom meant a clean mind, he often thought. As the clock hands crept towards 5 p.m., his coworkers would rush out to catch the train home, leaving Mark behind to finish his nightly routine. The last ones to leave would toss crumpled paper towels in a hurry, never stopping to think about the time and care it took to tidy up after them. But Mark was dedicated. He believed that small acts mattered. Each sweep of the mop and each spray of disinfectant made a difference. One evening, after everyone had left, Mark rolled up his sleeves. The bathroom needed more than just the usual cleaning. He paused, hands on his hips, and looked around. There were signs of neglect, grime in the corners, a soap dispenser that had been empty for weeks, and scuffs on the floor that told stories of rushed mornings. He decided to make it his mission to transform the space. With each swipe of the mop, he felt more empowered. Little did he know this act of kindness was about to change everything. The next day began like any other. The sun shone through the office windows and the hum of computers filled the air. Mark put on his blue uniform, the one that marked him as the janitor, and went about his usual duties. But as he walked past the bathroom, he noticed something. People were lingering. They seemed to be talking about the changes he had made. "Did you see the new soap?" one coworker remarked. Mark felt a smile tug at his lips. In the eyes of his coworkers, he was just a janitor. But he realized even the smallest gesture could uplift someone's day. He cleaned with pride that day, his heart feeling a little lighter each time he passed the bathroom. Days turned into weeks, and the buzz around the office continued to grow. Mark's efforts had revived a space that was often ignored. His coworkers began to respect it as more than just a bathroom. It became a little sanctuary. It was a place to wash away the stress of the day. Then one morning, as Mark was checking the supplies, the office door swung open and the CEO, Mrs. Thompson, stepped in. Mrs. Thompson was known for being stern and unwavering. Most employees avoided eye contact with her in the hallways, fearing her sharp gaze. But today her demeanor was different. She walked past Mark, giving him a brief nod. Mark's heart raced. Had he done something wrong? She emerged from the bathroom just a few minutes later and looked at him again with a warm smile that caught him off guard. The simple request felt like a tidal wave crashing into him. Did she want to talk about the bathroom? His mind raced. Had someone complained, or worse, was he about to lose his job over a sink? Absolutely, he replied, trying to sound calm despite the fluttering in his chest. They stepped into the empty conference room, and Mark sensed a shift in his entire world. Motioned for him to sit. He sat in front of her, feeling very small in that large chair. The office was quiet, but his heart drummed loudly in his ears. "Mark, I want to take a moment to acknowledge your hard work," she began, her voice steady yet warm. "I've noticed the changes in the bathroom." Mark blinked in disbelief. Was she really talking about him, about the bathroom? A wave of relief washed over him, but he forced himself to stay composed. "I've seen how it's changed the mood around here. People feel more comfortable and respected. A clean space allows for better productivity," she continued. As she spoke, Mark gradually realized that this wasn't just about a bathroom. It was about recognizing effort, no matter how small. He felt a new weight on his shoulders, and it was a kind of pride he had never felt before. "Mrs. Thompson continued, I want to understand more about you and your work." Mark took a deep breath. This was his chance to share. "I know cleaning doesn't seem very important, but when I walk into that bathroom, I want to create a good experience for everyone." Her expression softened, and she leaned in slightly, genuinely interested. "That's an incredible perspective, Mark. We need more people who believe in that. I think the company could benefit from your insights." Mark's mind swirled. A committee, his heart raced with uncertainty. He was just a janitor after all. But then he remembered the excitement in his coworkers' voices, the pride he felt each time he made a difference, however small it seemed. "I'd love to," he finally said, his voice steady, a asterisk spark igniting within him. Mrs. Thompson smiled wider. "Great, I'll have HR reach out to you." As the meeting ended, Mark stepped back into the bustling office, buoyed by a feeling he had long forgotten hope. The office seemed brighter now, the chatter more vibrant. Colleagues began to approach him with smiles instead of the usual hurried glances. A sense of community was blooming where there had been only indifference. Over the next few weeks, Mark grew into his new role on the committee. Each brainstorm session, each shared idea filled him with excitement. The committee aimed to launch initiatives that improved the office atmosphere. Mark suggested regular team-building events and de-stress days where employees could unwind. Though it felt surreal to sit at that big table, he found his voice. His ideas mattered. Every week he continued to clean the bathroom, but it was different now. No longer did he feel overlooked. He walked in with purpose, recalling how he had transformed that space. Once a coworker had joked about his diligence, but now they clapped him on the back with respect. Weeks turned into months, and Mark's relationship with his coworkers blossomed. They began to open up to him more, sharing laughter and stories. They recognized him as more than the janitor. He had become a vital part of their team. Mark felt as though he had unlocked a door he never knew existed. One day, as he was finishing up in the bathroom, he noticed a new employee, Jessica, standing at the mirror looking stressed. Mark took a moment, leaned against the doorframe, and said, "You know, this bathroom is a mini sanctuary. Take a deep breath." Jessica turned, surprised at first, then smiled. "Thanks, Mark." As the weeks rolled by, it became a tradition. Whenever someone looked overwhelmed, they'd seek him out for a quick chat. They'd ask, and Mark's heart swelled with pride, knowing he had made an impact in ways he never imagined. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. Mrs. Thompson called a company-wide meeting. Mark sat nervously, tapping his leg under the table, unsure of what was about to happen. Had he done something wrong? The room buzzed with chatter, and then it fell silent as she walked onto the stage. "Today we are recognizing the outstanding contributions of our very own employees who have gone above and beyond," she began. Each word felt like a drumbeat, sending waves of anticipation through the air. Mark held his breath. "Among them, I want to especially highlight Mark, our janitor." Mark's heart dropped. He never expected this moment. As she spoke, his coworkers erupted into applause, and he felt heat rising to his face. Every hour he spent would have been worth it, even if it had only brought a smile to one person. But now it was a recognition of a deeper connection. Mark stood, half in shock, half overwhelmed with gratitude. The respect he received filled him up like nothing else could. To be recognized for cleaning a bathroom, it wasn't just about that anymore. He had found his purpose. He had inspired others to see the beauty in every task, no matter how menial it seemed. In that moment, he realized something vital: everyone in every role matters. With his heart full, Mark understood that true value comes from how we transform the spaces around us and the people within them. Each small act could change the course of a day or even a life. So when he continued to clean the office bathroom, it no longer felt like a mundane task. It felt like a mission, one he wore proudly as he moved forward. It was a chilly Tuesday morning when Mark noticed something unusual. As he walked through the maze of cubicles in the high-rise office, the air felt heavy. His coworkers, usually bustling and lively, seemed to avoid eye contact, their energy drained. Whispers hovered like clouds, and when Mark passed, he could sense the unease. Little did he know, a single decision would soon change everything. Mark stood in front of the bathroom door, his hands gripping the handle. This was his territory, the office bathroom. Having been the janitor for over 3 years, he had seen it all: the torn paper towels, the overflowing trash cans, and the neglected soap dispensers. Yet it was more than just a bathroom for him. It was a place of transformation, a canvas where he could make a difference. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The sight hit him like a freight train. Yesterday's chaos remained. The floor was sticky, paper towels littered the counters, and the pungent smell of cleaning products mingled with something more unpleasant. It was overwhelming, but Mark felt a spark ignite within him. With a firm grip on his trusty mop, he didn't hesitate. "This matters," he thought. As he worked, he poured every ounce of his energy into the task. He wiped down surfaces until they gleamed, scrubbed the toilet bowls until they sparkled, and organized the shelves. Days turned into weeks, and still Mark took pride in his work. He would come in early and stay late, polishing the floors like they were the finest marble. The change was palpable. His coworkers started to notice. They'd linger a little longer in the bathroom, even commenting on how inviting it felt. A clean bathroom can change the mood, he thought, inspired by the small transformations he was witnessing. One afternoon, as Mark was finishing up, he overheard a conversation between two employees, Sarah and Tom, outside the bathroom. "Have you seen the bathroom lately?" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes bright with excitement. Tom nodded. "Yeah, whoever is cleaning it really cares. It just feels." Mark couldn't help but smile while mopping the last corner. It felt good to be seen, even if just for his cleaning. It motivated him to keep going. As he left that day, wiping sweat from his brow, Mark heard whispered conversations about an upcoming meeting with the CEO, Mrs. Thompson. Her reputation was stern, and she rarely stepped foot on the lower floors where he worked. Mark wondered, shaking his head. The next day, as Mark returned to work, the atmosphere was different. People were abuzz with rumors. The office receptionist's eyes widened as she saw him. His stomach dropped. Why would the CEO want to meet with someone like him? He was just a janitor, a cog in the machine. He stammered, trying to make sense of it. "Yes, she requested to see you this afternoon," she said, the excitement in her voice making Mark feel a mix of fear and confusion. The hours stretched painfully, every tick of the clock echoing like a heartbeat. What could the meeting mean? Had someone complained? Was he in trouble for spending too much time on cleaning, or could this be about the bathroom? When it was finally time, Mark's palms were clammy as he walked into the conference room. The sleek table, surrounded by dark leather chairs, felt intimidating. He tried to swallow the lump in his throat as he took a seat across from Mrs. Thompson. "Thank you for coming, Mark," she began, her tone surprisingly warm. Mark's heart raced. This was it. Yes, ma'am." He stumbled over his words. I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate your hard work, she interrupted, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made him squirm. You've made a significant impact. People are talking about how the bathroom has changed how they feel about it. Mark breathed a sigh of relief. I just wanted to create a better space for everyone, he said quietly, feeling emboldened. That's exactly it, she replied, leaning forward. And I want to explore how your perspective can help improve morale across the whole office. He could hardly believe his ears. The CEO wanted him, Mark, the janitor, to join a team aimed at making the workplace better. He exclaimed, excitement bubbling to the surface. With that simple question, the course of Mark's life began to shift dramatically. He found himself in meetings alongside executives, discussing ways to foster a positive work environment. He shared his ideas from that bathroom, why clean spaces matter, the psychological benefits of environment on productivity, and even ways to create community in a bustling office. His coworkers began to approach him differently too. No longer just the man with the mop, Mark became a part of their team, their confidant. They started inviting him to casual Friday lunches, cracking jokes and sharing stories. Conversations flowed easily, laughter replaced awkward silence, and Mark felt the bonds strengthening. As weeks rolled into months, Mark didn't just contribute, he thrived. They organized events, coffee mornings, team-building activities, and even mindfulness sessions in the office garden. Each endeavor drew people closer, creating a buzz of joy that spread throughout the floors. Mark's influence became a thread, weaving everyone together, and the office began to transform into a friendly community. However, amidst all the warmth, shadows lurked. As the culture grew, so did the expectations. Mark started to feel the pressure of his newfound role. All this responsibility weighed heavily on him. Every email he drafted, every suggestion he made felt seismic, and that spark of early excitement began to wane under the weight of anxiety. The day he cracked was the day Mark stood in front of the bathroom he had worked so hard to improve. All those wonderful changes, and yet there was an unsettling tension in his chest. He held a damp rag tightly, struggling as doubts clouded his thoughts. He whispered to himself, feeling a surge of uncertainty. As the conference room meeting approached that day, Mark felt detached. He'd spent countless hours preparing only to feel hollow and lost. He sat across from Mrs. Thompson and a few committee members, the weight of expectation pressing down hard. They spoke, but Mark could barely hear them. Thoughts raced through his mind. What if everything he had done fell apart? Just then, Mrs. Thompson caught his gaze. She asked, pulling him from his spiral of self-doubt. He blinked, taken aback. I think. A spark of surprise lit up her face, and he realized he had spoken up despite his fears. The conversation flowed, and suddenly clarity replaced the fog. Mark was alive in that moment. He was part of something far greater than himself. Soon he found that his voice mattered, and as the meeting wrapped up, Mark felt recognition wash over him. The group had rallied around his ideas, and he felt something shift inside, strength emerging from the shadows of doubt. That day, as he walked back through the bustling office, he noticed how each element he worked on, the bathroom, the projects, the people, interconnected. He could see the happiness and energy radiate through the corridors. Each smile seemed to acknowledge his contribution, and he couldn't help but feel proud. Over time, Mark became a face of change within the company. His journey transformed not just the workplace culture, but his entire perspective on life. The bathroom, once a place of routine, had propelled him into a realm where he could inspire others. Mark learned resilience in facing feelings of doubt and insecurity, understanding that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, it means acting despite it. As the seasons changed outside, so too did Mark. The janitor who once felt invisible was now the pulse of the office. He shared laughs in the break room, offered advice to new employees, and became a vital link between the staff and the leadership. What began with a simple act of cleaning had unfolded into a story of transformation, one bathroom, one person at a time. And as he stood one last time before that now beautifully maintained space, he thought about how far he had come. Mark realized that everyone has a role to play, a unique contribution to make. Each moment counts and every effort matters, no matter how small. Mark lifted the mop, a smile breaking across his face. It was just another dreary Monday at the office when Mark decided to take a stand. Rain drizzled outside, and the gathering clouds mirrored the somber atmosphere within the high-rise building. The daily buzz of emails, phone calls, and muted discussions created a pressure that hung thick in the air. But for Mark, the janitor, today would be different. As he wheeled his cleaning cart down the hallway, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in a glass panel. He didn't look like much: a blue uniform, a name tag, and a mop in his hand. It was easy for people to dismiss him, to overlook his presence in the busy rhythm of corporate life, but not anymore. Entering the office bathroom, he was greeted by chaos. The floor was a slip hazard, with paper towels littering every corner. The mirrors were smudged, and the faint stench of something unidentifiable wafted through the air. Mark took a deep breath and rolled up his sleeves. Today was the day he would change this space, and maybe, just maybe, impact the people who walked through it. He started with the floor, gliding the mop back and forth like a dancer perfecting his moves. With every swipe, he imagined each piece of grime representing the collective stress of his coworkers, their frustration, their hurried lives. He poured himself into it, scrubbing harder, knowing that each squeaky clean tile could spark a little joy in someone's day. While mopping, Mark couldn't help but reminisce about how he got here. He had a degree in business management, but found himself in the janitorial role due to a series of unfortunate events. He had lost his previous job and couldn't find another that matched his qualifications. The janitorial position hadn't been his dream, yet something about cleaning resonated with him. In the quiet moments he found peace, he transformed the space. Each day he thought about how a clean environment could uplift not only his mood but also those around him. He was determined to make this office feel like home, even if it was a small bathroom. As weeks passed, his efforts began to pay off. Coworkers started commenting on the bathroom. "Did you see the sink?" one woman exclaimed while washing her hands. Mark felt a warm glow of pride. His work was being seen, but not everyone noticed. The upper management remained distant. They walked with purpose and focus, rarely glancing toward Mark as he claimed. He wondered if they could feel the atmosphere shift in the bathroom, or if they were too absorbed in their power suits and important meetings to care. One rainy afternoon, while Mark was deep into his cleaning routine, he overheard two executives chatting outside the bathroom. "The energy around here is off," one of them said. That phrase echoed in Mark's mind. He realized the bathroom could serve as a foundation for change, a microcosm for the entire office. If he could spark positivity here, maybe it could spread. He felt invigorated by the idea. Motivated, he took it a step further. He went out that evening and bought some air fresheners, colorful hand soap, and even a small plant to brighten the space. With every little addition, the bathroom transformed. It was no longer a neglected corner, but a haven where people could refresh themselves. It didn't take long for whispers to spread throughout the office. Conversations buzzed around him. Coworkers lingered a bit longer, enjoying the space that Mark had created. People began to smile more, relax more. The change was more than physical. It ignited a sense of pride. Yet Mark still felt invisible. Sure, the employees enjoyed the bathroom, but the CEOs floated like clouds, untouchable and indifferent. One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the office, he overheard hushed conversations about an upcoming meeting with Mrs. Thompson, the CEO. She was a formidable figure, known for her sharp business acumen, but also for her reluctance to engage with anyone below her level. That evening, Mark returned home, his heart heavy with worry. The bathroom was vibrant, but how would he ever gain recognition? As he scrubbed the tiles, he pondered the notion of influence. The next morning, Mark found himself under an unexpected spotlight. He was wiping down the stainless steel sink when he heard someone call his name. It was Sarah, the office manager. She approached him with a look he hadn't seen before, determination mixed with excitement. "Mark, we need to talk," she said, urgency in her voice. He followed her to the break room, his stomach twisting with nerves. "I've heard so many positive things about the bathroom, and it's not just about cleanliness. You've created a vibe space where people actually relax for a moment. The management is noticing," she explained. Mark swallowed hard. "You absolutely do." His heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement washing over him. "Meet with me." "No, Mark, you're more than that. You've created an environment that reflects your spirit." As the day unfolded, that single spark of hope ignited into a flame. Mark spent the afternoon preparing. He practiced in his head what he wanted to say and how he valued his work. His palms were clammy and a knot formed in his stomach, but beneath the anxiety was a burgeoning sense of purpose. When the time for the meeting arrived, Mark approached the conference room with trepidation. The sleek, glass-paneled walls felt imposing, but he reminded himself that he wasn't there to shrink. The moment Mrs. Thompson entered, he straightened up. She sat down with the confidence of someone who ruled the room. "Thank you for coming, Mark," she began, her tone surprisingly warm. "I've been hearing great things about the changes in the bathroom." Mark felt the weight of her gaze. "I just wanted to create a better space for everyone," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's more than just about cleanliness, it's about how you've transformed that environment to make people feel valued and relaxed. I believe we could use your insight to elevate our overall workplace culture," she continued, leaning forward slightly. Mark could hardly wrap his mind around it. "Absolutely. We need more voices like yours, people who understand that environment impacts morale." His breath caught in his throat. The janitor, the invisible man, was being invited to co-create the company culture. "Yes," he exclaimed, disbelief mixing with excitement. As he left that meeting, Mark felt like he was walking on air. The transformation he created in that tiny bathroom had led him to this moment. His heart swelled with purpose and a renewed energy surged through him. He was no longer just a janitor, he was seen, valued, and empowered. Weeks turned into months, and Mark dove headfirst into his new role. He helped organize events, team-building activities, and wellness initiatives. Employees began to look to him for ideas, seeking his perspective, not just on cleaning but on creating a better workplace. Through it all, the bathroom remained a symbol of his journey. Every time he cleaned it, he remembered the days of self-doubt and isolation, and how he had bravely transformed that space, both literally and metaphorically. He watched the bathroom become a gathering spot, a place for laughter, creativity, and connection. One Friday afternoon, as the workweek came to a close, Mark decided to put up a new painting in the bathroom. It was a simple piece, an abstract design splashed with vibrant colors. He thought it would bring joy to those who used the space. As he stepped back to admire his work, a group of employees walked in, pausing to look at the new addition. One said, a smile breaking across her face. Mark felt the warmth spread in his chest. The simple act of cleaning had spiraled into a wave of change, radiating positivity throughout the entire office. That evening, feeling triumphant, Mark sat at his desk in the break room, catching up on emails. A small group of coworkers gathered nearby, sharing laughs and ideas about the upcoming team event. Mark listened in, soaking it all in. Just a few months ago, he felt invisible in a sea of corporate suits. Now he was part of the fabric of the office, contributing a thread of community and positivity. Suddenly, Sarah pulled him from his thoughts. Hey Mark, you've been making a difference here. The management is thrilled with how things are evolving. Thanks, Sarah, I just never would have thought one bathroom could lead to all of this, he said, his heart swelling with pride. The laughter and light-hearted banter around him felt like music. For the first time, Mark understood how transformative one act of dedication could be. His past uncertainties faded away in the warmth of connection and community. As he laughed with his colleagues, he realized something important. Every small act of significance, from scrubbing a floor to sharing an idea, contributed to the beats of a larger story. In the weeks that followed, Mark became a pivotal force, a leader, a friend, a champion of workplace culture. The office flourished and people began to approach him for guidance and support. But it all began with that tiny bathroom and that simple desire to make a difference. Mark understood now that every person, no matter their position, has the potential to spark change. He went from being invisible to irreplaceable, not through grand gestures, but through the power of purpose and community. As he cleaned the bathroom one last time before quitting for the day, he paused to look around. The space was not just a restroom, it had become a sanctuary, a stepping stone for transformation. Mark smiled, knowing he wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was an agent of change, a beacon of hope in a world that sometimes forgets the value of even the simplest contributions. And just like that, he had transformed not just the space, but the lives around him. Mark stood in the dimly lit office bathroom, staring at the mess before him. The floor was sticky with unknown substances, paper towels lay scattered like abandoned ships, and the air smelled stale. Little did he know, in just a few weeks, this bathroom would become the epicenter of his life's transformation. As he pulled on his rubber gloves, a wave of determination washed over him. This wasn't just a job, it was an opportunity to create something enduring. With a mop in hand, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Each swipe of the mop became a dance, a rebellion against neglect. He scrubbed and sprayed, envisioning a clean, welcoming space where his coworkers could take a moment to breathe. Outside, the office buzzed with tension. The atmosphere felt thick, crackling with anxiety as deadlines loomed. Mark often felt like a ghost, drifting from one corner of the office to another, unnoticed. But inside this bathroom, he could be a force of change, however small. He poured every ounce of effort into his work. With each scrub, he imagined lifting the weight off his coworkers' shoulders. There was something deeply satisfying about cleaning. He found solace in the routine, and his heart raced with the thrill of transforming a neglected space into something bright and fresh. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, whispers began to circulate. One coworker exclaimed to another. Mark felt a rush of pride. His efforts were finally being recognized, and the bathroom, once a forgotten space, had started to shimmer. People began taking extra moments at the sink, appreciating the sparkling counters and the fresh smell of lemon-scented soap. He brought in colorful towels and added a small bamboo plant for a touch of life. Yet amidst these transformations, the hierarchy of the office loomed large. The higher-ups, especially Mrs. Thompson, the CEO, seemed untouched by the changes in the bathroom. They moved through the hallways like shadows, rarely making eye contact with those below them. Mark felt the weight of that distance. One day, he overheard a conversation between Sarah, the office manager, and Tom, a senior executive. "We need to do something about the morale around here," Sarah said, her voice low. Tom nodded in agreement, but their focus shifted to another topic, leaving Mark with a mix of hope and doubt. What if he could be part of that solution? What if this bathroom could inspire a movement? As he mopped the floor that evening, he decided to take it even further. He wanted to create a little oasis in the midst of chaos. He envisioned a space where employees could take a breath, recharge, and clear their heads. What if he could be the reason someone's day got a little brighter? Over the next few weeks, Mark transformed the bathroom in every way he could think of. He added stickers with uplifting quotes next to the mirrors, inviting people to pause and reflect. "The cleanest spaces lead to clear minds," one of them read. He painted the walls a calming shade of blue, immediately brightening the mood of anyone who walked in. Gradually, people began to notice. Employees would comment to each other about how nice the bathroom felt. They started to thank him when they saw him. "Hey Mark, the bathroom looks amazing. One woman smiled, and for the first time Mark felt like he was part of the team, even if his role was unconventional. As excitement grew, so did Mark's ambition. He began to think bigger. If a bathroom could bring out smiles, what could a more significant initiative do? So he took a deep breath and entered a meeting room one day to propose a wellness initiative for the whole office. His heart raced as he rehearsed his speech mentally. To his surprise, when his chance finally came, the conference room was packed. Managers and executives, all dressed sharply, sat around a long table. Mark stood at the front, gripping the edge, feeling the heat rise in his cheeks. Thank you for having me." Eyes shifted, and he felt exposed as the weight of their gaze bore down on him, but he pushed through, fueled by determination. If we can create little moments of joy like a clean bathroom, we can build something bigger. The room went silent for a moment, and Mark's heart thudded dully. Had he gone too far? Would they laugh him out? But then Sarah spoke up. "I think Mark has a point. It's about fostering a culture of positivity." Slowly, others nodded in agreement. A few people smiled. Suddenly, Mark felt a rush of courage. He knew he was on the right path. There was something bubbling beneath the surface, something remarkable that he had ignited in just a few weeks. Despite that initial validation, the hard work continued. Over the next few weeks, Mark dedicated every spare moment to developing more wellness initiatives. He worked with Sarah to organize Mindful Mondays, where employees could take a short break to meditate or reflect in a quiet space. He suggested colorful bulletin boards filled with positive messages of encouragement. As the days turned into weeks, the office atmosphere began to shift. Laughter replaced tension and productivity soared. Coworkers who had once glided through the hallways with their heads down began to stop and chat. They shared ideas, laughter, and support. But even with this shift, Mark felt a sense of longing. He still wanted more recognition, not just from his coworkers, but from the top brass, especially Mrs. Thompson. She remained a distant figure, making it difficult for him to connect with her. One rainy afternoon, as he was finishing up in the bathroom, he overheard some buzz in the hallway. "Have you heard? Mrs. Thompson is holding a meeting next week for all department heads. She wants to discuss the changes in office culture," one voice said. Excitement crackled through the air. Mark's heart raced. This could be his chance. If he could just get a moment with her, perhaps he could express how the simple act of cleaning had turned into something profound for the whole office. With renewed determination, he pulled together a brief presentation, outlining the impact of the initiatives he'd championed. He included feedback from employees, showcasing their smiles and increasing morale. He wanted to show her that even the simplest things, the spark of cleanliness, the warmth of community, could lead to greatness. The day of the meeting arrived, and Mark felt a whirlwind of emotions before stepping into the conference room. This was it. As he waved to his coworkers, they returned beaming smiles, filling him with hope. Mark stood in front of the polished table, and the executives sat on the other side, their expressions unreadable. Mrs. Thompson entered, and the tension in the room shifted. "Good afternoon, everyone." Her commanding presence filled the room. Mark stepped forward, heart racing but determined to be heard. Mrs. Thompson raised her eyebrow, intrigued. As he spoke, he could see her posture shifting slightly, as if she was actually listening. Mark shared stories about the newfound camaraderie blossoming among employees, the positive feedback, and how even a simple bathroom could be a catalyst for something larger. He felt the energy in the room shift, and he pressed on. "When we create spaces that welcome positivity, we build a culture people want to be part of." As he finished, silence lingered. Then, after a moment that felt like an eternity, Mrs. Thompson smiled a genuine, soft smile. "Thank you, Mark. Your perspective is refreshing. You've turned something simple into a movement." Mark's heart soared, tears prickled at the corners of his eyes. Could it be that months of hard work were finally recognized? As the meeting concluded, he felt a wave of gratitude for the journey he had taken. Suddenly, he was pulled back to his old routines, only this time with a new spring in his step. The bathroom continued to shine, but now it stood as a legacy of change, an embodiment of the possibility that grew each day. Employees continued to dim their stress by embracing the space, and Mark felt settled in. One day, after a busy workweek, Mark was invited to sit down with Mrs. Thompson again. "Mark, I wanted to discuss how we can expand these initiatives to other departments." Mark felt his mind whirl at the news, his passion renewing. Absolutely. Together, they brainstormed ideas, laying the groundwork for a company-wide initiative. The office became a hub of positivity filled with laughter and collaboration. Mark had become an integral part of a burgeoning culture. As the months rolled on, Mark knew he'd moved past merely cleaning bathrooms. He reinvented himself. He not only took pride in his work, he inspired those around him to wake up each day looking forward to coming into the office. In the end, what began as a simple task transformed into a life-altering journey. Mark realized that change can start with anyone in any place, even a small bathroom. Every swipe of the mop, every motivational quote, every conversation had a ripple effect greater than he ever imagined. As he walked into the bathroom one last time that day, he paused for a moment, reflecting on how far he had come. He was a janitor, yes, but he was also a leader, an influencer, and a vital part of a community. The little things had turned into profound realizations, and in the quiet corners of that office bathroom, Mark had discovered his voice and with it, the ability to inspire change. Mark stood in front of the bathroom door, mopping bucket at his side, and paused for a moment, feeling the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. In just a few short hours, the office would be buzzing with activity, a hive of stressed-out employees and ticking clocks. But before all of that chaos began, he needed to face what lay behind that door. He pushed it open, and the sight filled him with a mix of dread and determination. The floor was a mosaic of paper towels, the sink bore the evidence of careless splashes, and the air was stale, tinged with a scent that left much to be desired. This was not just any restroom, it was the office bathroom, a place of refuge for overworked employees, a sanctuary that had become something of a horror show. Mark rolled up his sleeves, determined that today would be different. He loved the idea that a clean bathroom could lift spirits, even for just a moment. He grabbed his mop and began his routine, each movement precise, each scrub a small act of rebellion against neglect. As his mop glided effortlessly across the tiled floor, he let his mind wander. He'd always dreamt of making a difference in a big corporate environment, and cleaning seemed so far removed from that dream. A college degree in business management hung in the back of his mind like a weight he couldn't shake. He had applied to countless jobs, each rejection further dimming his hopes until he found himself in this role, wearing a blue uniform and pushing a cleaning cart. But with every swipe of that mop, Mark envisioned something grander. The bathroom could be a vibrant space, a place where employees could take a moment to breathe, recalibrate, and gather their thoughts. If he could make this one small area shine, perhaps the positivity would spread. Weeks rolled by and slowly things began to change. Coworkers started noticing. One day as he finished up, a woman named Sarah walked in. She glanced around wide-eyed, taken aback by the gleaming tiles and the fresh scents wafting in the air. She asked, a genuine smile lighting up her face. He felt a flush of pride and nodded sheepishly. She said, as she left, Mark's heart swelled with hope. The small changes he made were resonating. Word spread, and soon people began to take extra moments in the bathroom, washing their hands more thoroughly, appreciating the space for its newfound cleanliness. It was just a bathroom, yes, but it pulsed with the rhythm of their collective stress and relief. Yet despite these victories, Mark's hopes felt muted. The higher-ups, the CEOs, swept through the hall like shadows, barely acknowledging him as he went about his duties. He longed to connect with them, to show them what cleaning the bathroom had taught him about transformation and about community. One afternoon, as rain pattered softly against the window, he overheard a conversation between two managers. "The energy around here is off," one said, frustration evident in her tone. "People are overwhelmed." The words hung in the air, igniting a flicker of determination inside Mark. If he could influence the atmosphere in the bathroom, could he not also have a voice in shifting the energy of the entire office? Maybe he could show his coworkers and even the executives that positivity could start from the ground up. That evening, as he cleaned, his mind raced. What if he hosted an office gathering centered around wellness? What if he created an inviting, joyful atmosphere in other areas, just like he had done with the bathroom? It was an idea that sent shivers down his spine. When he arrived at work the next day, Mark had a newfound sense of purpose. He began making plans, sketching ideas on napkins during lunch breaks, his excitement bubbling every time he envisioned hosting employees for a simple coffee chat where people could gather and share their thoughts. But the self-doubt still nagged at him. That nagging thought made him hesitate. Would anyone care what he had to say? What did he know about corporate culture beyond cleaning? Despite the doubt he pressed on, he knew he had something to offer. With every ounce of effort he put into making the bathroom a positive space, he felt a spark grow. It became more than cleaning. It was a way to connect, to bring joy, and to foster community. Finally, he worked up the courage to approach Sarah, the office manager who had complimented him before. Taking a deep breath, he walked into the break room where she was making coffee. "Hey Sarah," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I've been thinking about organizing a wellness gathering, maybe something casual where people can unwind and connect." She paused, her eyes lighting up. "You know, that's an amazing idea, Mark. I think people would love it." He felt a rush of exhilaration. For the first time, he was being seen not just as the janitor, but as a contributor. As the gathering approached, Mark transformed the break room into a warm, inviting space. He hung up streamers, set out snacks, and prepared small activities designed to relax and inspire. He decided to start with the bathroom, bringing the essence of that space into the larger workplace. The day arrived, and Mark felt butterflies raging in his stomach. Would anyone show up? Would people laugh at his efforts? But as the clock ticked closer to noon, he noticed the familiar faces filtering in, some wearing hesitant smiles, others genuinely excited. He greeted, his voice trembling with excitement as he welcomed them all. The gathering began, and Mark felt the energy shift. People started sharing their stressors, project deadlines, workload, and the daily grind. But through the murmurings, laughter began to rise, conversations flowed more freely. Someone asked, a hint of disbelief in their voice. Mark took a deep breath, his heart racing as he saw an opening. I think we all get caught in the hustle, but if we take a moment to care for ourselves and make the spaces we work in comfortable and inviting, it can really change everything." The room went quiet for a moment. Laughter erupted, breaking the tension in the room, and a wave of relief washed over Mark. As the gathering continued, people shared their ideas for future events. There were suggestions for yoga in the break room, fun Friday lunches, and even team-building games. Every idea made Mark's heart swell. His bathroom had sparked a movement, a fire ignited that would allow people to connect, share, and heal. That week, feedback about the gathering resonated throughout the office like ripples in water. Coworkers sought him out in the hallway, give him thumbs up, or stopping to thank him for the idea. "It was wonderful, Mark," one said. But still, Mark felt like the janitor, the invisible man in the background. Each compliment felt like a push up a steep hill, but the view at the top remained obscured. How could he elevate himself beyond this role? Then came the moment that changed everything, a chance encounter that would catalyze his journey. One afternoon, as he finished cleaning the bathroom, he bumped into Mrs. Thompson, the CEO, rushing out of her office, her expression a mix of focus and urgency. She said, nearly brushing past him. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson," he said, his heart pounding. "I just wanted to let you know that we had a great gathering this week." Mrs. Thompson paused, a glimmer of curiosity flashing in her sharp gaze. "Really? I hadn't heard about it." Mark seized the moment, shifting gears. "It actually went wonderfully. We had discussions about creating better work environments just like the bathroom." She raised an eyebrow, intrigue unfolding in her expression. "That's interesting. I'd like to hear more." Mark could barely believe it. A meeting with the CEO, the depths of his disbelief clouded his excitement. As he walked away, his heart raced. The gravity of the moment weighed on him. This was his opportunity, a chance to be truly seen. For the next few days, he poured his energy into preparing for that meeting. He gathered feedback from his coworkers, compiled notes, and rehearsed his points over and over until they flowed naturally. The day of the meeting dawned, and Mark couldn't shake his jittery nerves. He walked into the sleek conference room, the walls lined with awards and accolades. He felt small in the midst of such grandeur, but he squared his shoulders and breathed deep. Mrs. Thompson entered with layers of authority and a hint of warmth. "Thank you for coming, Mark." As he spoke, nervousness spilled out of him, replaced by a torrent of passion as he discussed the impact that small changes had on his coworkers. He laid out his vision for a company-wide initiative focused on wellness and community, echoing the same heartbeat he felt in the bathroom. This isn't just about a clean space. It's about creating an environment where people feel valued and connected. Her gaze bore into him as she absorbed his words, and he felt a flicker of hope stir in his chest. "You've given me a fresh perspective on our culture, Mark. I see great potential here." He detailed plans to expand on what had started in the bathroom, creating workshops, discussion forums, and inviting employees across the board to share their thoughts on making the office a happier, healthier place. Mrs. Thompson nodded, the lines of her face softening. "I appreciate this. We need more authenticity in our approach, and you're tapping into something essential." At that moment, Mark felt something shift within him. He was no longer just a janitor. He had become a conduit of change, a voice demanding to be heard. The weeks that followed saw Mark immersed in creating the initiative he had proposed. With the support of Mrs. Thompson, he and Sarah transformed small meetings into large gatherings filled with laughter, brainstorming, and community-building exercises. Each event fed into the next, igniting energy throughout the office. Mark found himself working alongside managers and staff members, all eager to contribute. He was no longer confined to the shadows. He stood at the forefront, guiding discussions and fostering connections. The bathroom had merely been a launch pad, pushing him into a world where he could thrive. As days melted into weeks, Mark watched as the office morphed into a vibrant space filled with engagement, camaraderie, and laughter. Employees took the time to pause, connect, and recharge, finding moments of unity throughout the workspace. There was a genuine sense of joy that flowed, one that resonated with the very notion of community. Mark felt like a renewed version of himself, a creator of change, and everywhere he turned, he noticed the impact of his efforts reflected in the smiles of his coworkers. Then one day, he entered the bathroom one last time, admiring the space he had once regarded as a burden. The walls glistened, the air smelled fresh, and the soft rays of sunlight cascaded through the small window. This was no longer just a bathroom, it had transformed into a beacon of hope and potential. Mark smiled to himself, recognizing the remarkable journey he had embarked on. It was a journey that redefined what it meant to truly belong, to lead, and to create a positive ripple in the lives of those around him. The office had become a family, and he felt at home in the most unexpected ways. With every detailed scrub, every thoughtful idea that bloomed, and every heart-to-heart conversation that unfolded, Mark had not just cleaned a single bathroom, he'd ignited a movement. The journey from the janitor's cart to the heart of corporate culture taught him that real change starts with a simple desire to make a difference and a mop in hand. And that difference had transformed his life and the lives of those around him forever. Mark stood in front of the office bathroom door, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead as he took a deep breath. He pushed the door open and winced at the sight that greeted him. It was chaos, paper towels strewn across the floor, the sink splattered with soap remnants, and an unpleasant odor lingering in the air. The small space looked like it hadn't been touched in days. For most, it was just a bathroom, a necessary inconvenience in a corporate world full of pressures and deadlines, but Mark saw potential. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to tackle the mess head-on. He had been the janitor at this firm for 5 years, his blue uniform blending into the background of polished suits and bustling employees. Each day felt like a battle against anonymity, but here in this sanctuary, he felt different. He could make an impact, however small. With a mop in one hand and a bucket in the other, he began his routine. He scrubbed the floor vigorously, his mind racing with ideas. This was more than just cleaning, this was an opportunity to lift spirits. As the mop danced across the tiles, Mark envisioned each stroke as a way to erase the stress of the employees who would come in, a brief escape from the chaos of their workdays. He noticed how much people hurried through their lives, barely glancing at the spaces they occupied. Mark wanted to change that. With every scrub and spray, he infused care and thoughtfulness into what seemed like a mundane task. Little by little, the bathroom transformed. Employees began to linger a bit longer, sometimes chatting over hand soap and warm water. One colleague remarked, Mark's heart soared. He was making a difference even if no one knew it was him. Feedback trickled in, people noticed, smiled, and felt lighter even if just for a moment. But the higher-ups, the executives, remained oblivious. They floated through the office like clouds, rarely interacting with the ground-level employees. Mark longed for their acknowledgement. Despite his hard work, he felt invisible, drowning in the reality that he was just a janitor in a blue uniform. One rainy afternoon, Mark overheard two managers discussing the office atmosphere. "The energy here is off," one of them said. The other nodded, frustration evident in their expressions. Mark caught snippets of increasing stress and anxiety. It was a call to action. What if he could be part of the solution? With renewed determination, he devised a plan. If uplifting the bathroom could enhance people's moods, what if he extended that idea office-wide? What if he organized casual gatherings, a space for coworkers to unwind, share ideas, and feel more connected? That evening, he stayed late, jotting down ideas on worn-out napkins. He dreamed of hosting Mindful Mondays, where employees could take a moment to reset and recharge. The days dragged on, but the vision refused to fade. Mark took a leap of faith and approached Sarah, the office manager. He found her one morning, packing boxes for an upcoming event. "Hey Sarah," he said, his voice catching. "I've been thinking about organizing a gathering, maybe something focused on wellness, where people can relax and share ideas." Sarah paused, her brow furrowing, and then her eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea, Mark. People could use a break." As they mapped out the details, Mark's excitement bubbled over. Nerves twisted in his stomach, but he felt proud. They decided on a date, and he channeled all his energy into preparing. He wanted it to be welcoming, a reflection of what he believed spaces could be. The date approached, and Mark felt a whirlwind of emotions, fear, anticipation, hope. Would anyone show up? Would they scoff at his efforts? But on the day of the gathering, the buzz in the office shifted. People trickled into the break room, wide-eyed and curious. As they settled in, Mark became more at ease, recognizing familiar faces. "Welcome, everyone," he greeted, his nerves melting away in the warmth of their presence. He fostered conversations, sharing ideas, and found that people began to open up. They spoke about challenges at work, balancing stress, and even the importance of taking moments for oneself. Laughter punctuated their discussions, a sound Mark had long craved. Someone asked, prompting nods around the room. Mark seized the chance. "You know, it's easy to get lost in the grind, but if we take care of ourselves and each other, we create a better working environment." The room was electric. Laughter mixed with contemplative nods, and Mark felt a surge of belonging wash over him. Maybe, just maybe, he had sparked something meaningful. As the weeks rolled on, feedback about the gatherings resonated throughout the office. Colleagues approached him with smiles, thanking him for his initiative. One person said the realization that he had ignited a movement thrilled him, but once again he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He still yearned for recognition, not just from coworkers, but from the higher-ups, especially Mrs. Thompson. She hadn't joined any of their gatherings. The gap between them felt like a chasm he couldn't cross. One fateful day, as Mark finished cleaning the bathroom, he finally encountered Mrs. Thompson. She rushed out of her office, barely looking his way. She said, her voice hurried, brushing past him. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson," Mark said, summoning his courage. "I just wanted to let you know that our gatherings have made a noticeable difference." To his surprise, she paused, her brow furrowing slightly. "Really? I hadn't heard about it." He seized the moment, his heart pounding. "It's gone really well, we've shared ideas, and it seems to boost morale." She held his gaze, a flicker of interest reflected in her expression. "I'd like to hear more." Mark felt his world tilt. A meeting. He nodded vigorously, excitement and disbelief mingling as he watched her walk away. For the next few days, he meticulously prepared for that meeting. He gathered testimonials from colleagues and created a presentation to outline the positive changes in morale and productivity since the gatherings began. This was his chance to advocate for something bigger, a culture shift that could resonate throughout the entire company. The day arrived, and Mark entered the sleek conference room filled with leather chairs and polished wood. He felt small, but he straightened up, determined to make his voice matter. Mrs. Thompson entered, her presence commanding as she took a seat across from him. "Thank you for offering to meet Mark," she said, looking directly at him. Taking a deep breath, he pitched his ideas with fervor, emphasizing how simple acts like gathering for Mindful Mondays had not only increased morale but also fostered a sense of community. He shared anecdotes from employees, showcasing their feelings of connection and the productivity boost they experienced. He laid down his vision for the future, a company-wide initiative to prioritize employee well-being. Mrs. Thompson leaned in closer, a thoughtful look crossing her face. "You've given me a new perspective on this. I didn't realize how significant these changes could be." Mark felt a swell of hope. As they discussed practical steps for implementation, he could see her interest growing. They brainstormed ideas for workshops, team-building activities, and other methods to incorporate wellness into the workplace. "I'd like to make you part of a task force to implement these initiatives office-wide," she concluded, her tone firm but warm, heart racing. Mark nodded eagerly. As he left that meeting, Mark felt lighter, as if he had shed the weight of invisibility. He was no longer just the janitor, he was an integral part of something larger. The bathroom had been his catalyst, and now he stood at the helm of a change that could truly resonate throughout the company. Over the next few months, Mark became increasingly involved in the task force, collaborating with colleagues from all departments. They organized events, team-building retreats, wellness workshops, and open forums that encouraged dialogue. The office blossomed into a tapestry of connections, laughter, and engagement. As the culture flourished, Mark felt the profound weight of pride in his work. He watched as formerly disengaged employees transformed into passionate contributors, uniting to uplift one another. He was no longer invisible. He was part of a vibrant community that thrived on collaboration. Then one warm afternoon, Mark entered the bathroom one last time. He smiled as he admired the crisp, clean space, still reminiscent of the chaos it once was. It served as a reminder of how far he had come, not just for himself, but for everyone in the office. In his heart, he understood something profound. It's not just about being seen or heard, it's about the impact you can have on others. It was this journey, a journey sparked from a simple act of cleaning, that had awakened his potential. As he left the bathroom, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The office had become his home, and he was proud to be part of its story. Through every small gesture and every moment of courage, he had transformed not just a bathroom, but lives. This was the beginning of something magnificent, and he was ready to continue building it one clean space at a time. Mark stood at the entrance of the office bathroom, staring at the chaos within. It was a typical Tuesday, and the fluorescent lights above hummed ominously. The floor was a minefield of paper towels, the sink was splattered with remnants of toothpaste, and an overwhelming odor hung in the air. To most, this was just a necessity, a place to take a break from the relentless grind of their workdays. But for Mark, it was a blank canvas waiting to be transformed. He took a deep breath, rolling up his sleeves. As the janitor for this bustling office, he had seen the bathroom descend into disarray time and again, but he was determined to change that today. Each swipe of the mop was not just about cleaning, it was a declaration. He wanted to create a space that would lift people's spirits, if only for a moment. With the mop in one hand and a bucket of cleaning supplies in the other, Mark stepped inside, his heart racing with purpose. He gripped the handle tighter, imagining every stroke as a possibility. A clean bathroom could be a sanctuary, a place where exhausted employees could find a moment of peace amid deadlines and board meetings. He started on the floor, moving swiftly, the mop gliding over the tiles like a dance. To him, this cleaning ritual was more than a job. It was a way to reclaim some joy in a place that had become stagnant. He poured his energy into each swipe, visualizing how it could spark positivity for those who walked through the door. As days turned into weeks, Mark committed himself to this effort. He sourced fresh flowers, adding them to the windowsill. At first, his coworkers barely noticed. They rushed in and out, preoccupied with their own stressors, their heads buried in laptops and spreadsheets. But then something changed. One day, a colleague named Sarah stepped in and gasped as she took in the transformed space. "Mark, this is amazing," she exclaimed, looking around wide-eyed. His heart swelled with pride. Other employees began to follow suit. Someone else remarked, the bathroom became a topic of conversation, not just a pit stop on the way to meetings. The spark of change ignited in a way that Mark never anticipated. With each positive comment, he felt a renewed sense of energy. It was more than just clean tiles, it was about community. Employees began gathering in the bathroom, sharing a joke or a smile as they washed their hands. Mark witnessed the atmosphere shifting, employees disarming their tension even if just for a moment. Weeks rolled by and Mark's small initiative continued to grow. Each time he returned to the bathroom, it was as if he was nurturing a plant, watching it blossom. Even amidst this transformation, the executives floated above it all, disconnected from the camaraderie growing below. The CEO, Mrs. Thompson, was a figure of authority awful to many and redoubtable to all. They often heard her footsteps echoing down the hallway, but she rarely engaged with anyone at Mark's level. One rainy afternoon, while he was scrubbing the toilets, he overheard two managers discussing the office atmosphere. "It's tense around here," one said, her voice laced with concern. Mark's ears perked up. Could he be the one to initiate a change? Could he help bridge the gap between the upper management and the employees he worked alongside? It was a thought that lingered, igniting a fire in his belly. That night, Mark couldn't shake the ideas swirling in his mind. What if he organized a gathering, a little event where people could take a break from their work, share stories, and connect? It felt bold, it felt terrifying. But every great change starts with a single step, doesn't it? The next day, he approached Sarah again, more determined this time. "Sarah, what do you think about hosting a casual gathering for the office, a wellness break?" She paused, considering. That's not a bad idea. People do seem stressed." Mark felt a rush of exhilaration. He would provide a space where coworkers could chat, share, and unwind. It was nothing monumental, but sometimes small changes brought the greatest results. The day of the first gathering arrived, and Mark could hardly contain his nerves. Would anyone come? The thoughts raced through his mind like a runaway train, but as lunchtime approached, something amazing happened. Colleagues trickled in, curious and intrigued by what Mark had put together. He greeted, trying to mask his anxiety with enthusiasm. People mingled, laughter filling the air as they shared stories and experiences. Mark watched their energy shift from stressed to relaxed. Everyone seemed lighter, smiles trading places with furrowed brows. One employee asked, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Mark felt the opening and took a breath. It's easy to get lost in the grind, but it's important to take a moment for ourselves, not just to recharge, but to connect with each other. There was a ripple of agreement and a chorus of laughter. The connections blossomed that day, threads weaving through conversations like comforting fabric. People who usually wouldn't engage with one another found common ground, sharing burdens, laughter, and even release. Mark felt a sense of purpose blooming within him, lifting his heart higher than it had ever been. As weeks passed, word spread about Mindful Mondays. The gatherings grew with each session, more employees from different departments joining in. Mark took it upon himself to make each gathering special, adding themes, icebreakers, and games that fostered an atmosphere of joy. Though the energy was palpable, he still longed for the validation from the higher-ups. In the back of his mind, he wondered how Mrs. Thompson felt about this initiative. Was she aware of the impact it was having? Did she care? One afternoon, while scrubbing down the bathroom after a bustling lunchtime, Mark had a fateful encounter. Mrs. Thompson entered the restroom, looking every bit as imposing as her title suggested. She quickly checked her reflection in the mirror, not registering him at first. He said, glancing at him just long enough to maintain a professional facade. "Hello, Mrs. Thompson," Mark managed, his voice steady despite his heart racing. "I wanted to let you know that our gatherings have really made a difference." For a moment she paused, her gaze wavering. Really, I hadn't heard much about it. Mark seized the moment, feeling the adrenaline pulse through him. People are truly responding well. I've seen increased morale and interaction among coworkers. It's been wonderful to see. Mrs. Thompson raised an eyebrow, genuinely intrigued now. "I'd like to hear more about it." His heart raced at the prospect. "Absolutely," Mark replied, excitement and disbelief flooding him as her figure disappeared from view. Now that the opportunity was there, he felt the weight of preparation settle on his shoulders. Over the next few days, he feverishly compiled notes, gathering testimonies and feedback from his coworkers, eager to present the evidence of sense and spirit in the office. He believed in this momentum, and he wanted to seize the chance to show how it could expand. The day of the meeting came, and Mark approached the polished conference room with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The walls were adorned with accolades, a clear representation of success, while he felt like a small fish in this monumental ocean. Mrs. Thompson entered, each movement commanding attention as she settled into her seat. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mark," she began, her expression serious but with a hint of warmth. "I've been eager to hear your insights." With a deep breath, he launched into his presentation. He spoke passionately about what he had witnessed, the transformations echoing through the office like ripples in a pond. If we create spaces that invite openness and foster a sense of community, we not only heal individually but as a team. Mrs. Thompson listened intently, a glimmer of interest visible in her eyes. For every point he made, he could feel her instincts, recognizing the weight of his words. "This is quite compelling," she said after a pause, her tone thoughtful. "We've been struggling with morale for a while now." Mark felt a swell of hope. "Thank you, I think we can scale this to reach the entire office." They discussed potential initiatives and practical steps that could resonate with the entire staff. Mark illustrated his vision for a company-wide approach, pulling from real-life experiences and his time cleaning the bathroom, transforming it into the heart of change. "I appreciate your passion and your perspective," Mrs. Thompson concluded, a smile breaking across her face. let's move forward with this. An electric current surged through Mark, really. As they shook hands, he felt as if he had crossed a threshold. No longer just the janitor in a blue uniform, he was now part of a movement, a voice of change. His hard work had materialized into something meaningful and significant. In the months that followed, Mark became a key figure in the task force that rolled out the initiative. The focus on wellness expanded to include everything from meditation sessions to social events designed to foster camaraderie. Every employee felt the shift. The icy distance between departments melted away, replaced by warmth and laughter. No longer did the office feel like a battleground. It transformed into a thriving community where employees felt valued and engaged. Mark led the charge, but he also remembered the roots of it all, the simple act of cleaning a bathroom, creating a ripple of change. Every day as he entered that bathroom, he paused to admire how far it had come. It had transformed from a neglected space into a symbol of hope and connection, a place where conversations blossomed and smiles exchanged. One final day, as he locked up after a long week, Mark reflected on his journey, his heart swelling with pride. It was exhilarating to recognize that sometimes the most profound change begins in the most unassuming places. He had stepped from the shadows, his presence felt, his voice heard. He was a janitor, but more than that, he was a leader, a catalyst for change. And it all began with the determination to create a little brightness in a place where darkness could easily consume. Mark had cleaned the office bathroom, yes, but he had also cleaned out the neglect of silence and isolation. In its place flourished a vibrant community, ready to embrace the future together, one clean space at a time. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Mark stood at the entrance of the office bathroom. The door swung open with a creak, revealing chaos within. Paper towels littered the floor like fallen leaves, remnants of hastily washed hands clung to the sink, and a sharp, unpleasant smell filled the air. He wrinkled his nose, but this was his domain. This was where he would make his mark. With a deep breath, Mark rolled up his sleeves and stepped inside, determination coursing through him. For 3 years, he had worn a blue uniform, blending into the background of corporate life. Employees passed him by without a second glance, their eyes glued to screens or buried in phones. But today he decided would be different. Today he would turn this neglected bathroom into a sanctuary. As he grabbed the mop and filled his bucket with disinfectant, he felt a surge of purpose. Each swipe of the mop felt like a rebellion against the mundanity of office life. He envisioned the employees stepping inside, their worries dissipating as they took in the fresh scent of cleanliness. With each movement, he poured his soul into the task. He scrubbed the floor, the tiles glistening under his efforts. He wiped down the sinks until they sparkled and replaced the empty soap dispensers with fragrant, inviting ones. And as he worked, he thought about how this small act could lead to something much bigger. If a bathroom could be transformed, what else could be changed? Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, employees began to take notice. Mark witnessed them linger a little longer in the bathroom, chatting with colleagues instead of rushing off to meetings. "Did you see the new soap?" one coworker exclaimed, excitement in her voice. Mark felt a swell of pride. His efforts were being seen. Every detail mattered, every improvement was a gift to his coworkers. But despite the positive responses, Mark still felt invisible when it came to the higher-ups. The executives floated through the office like clouds, rarely acknowledging anyone beneath their level. Mrs. Thompson, the CEO, was a formidable figure, a woman known for her hard choices and sharp gaze. Mark longed for a moment of connection, a chance to share his vision of change. Then came the pivotal moment. One rainy Wednesday, while he was stocking supplies, he overheard two managers in hushed tones. "We need to focus on improving employee morale," one said, frustration evident in her voice. "There's been so much stress around here." Mark leaned closer, heart pounding. With every word, a spark ignited within him. What if I could make a difference? That night, his mind raced with ideas. If he could elevate the bathroom experience, could he not elevate the entire workplace? He envisioned organizing casual gatherings where coworkers could unwind, share, and connect. Little moments of joy could bloom, transforming the atmosphere. The next morning, heart pounding, he approached Sarah, the office manager. She was diligent and approachable, often seen chatting with employees. "Hey Sarah, do you think we could organize a wellness gathering? I feel like it could really help lift spirits around here," he suggested, his voice shaky but resolute. To his surprise, her eyes brightened. "That's a fantastic idea, Mark. I think people would love it." Mark couldn't believe it. Together, they planned a Mindful Monday, an informal gathering where employees could share ideas, vent frustrations, and foster connections. As they discussed the details, excitement bubbled inside him. This was an opportunity to create something meaningful, a space where positivity could thrive. The day of the gathering arrived, and Mark's nerves danced in his stomach. Would anyone show up? Would they laugh at his efforts? He prepared the break room with snacks, cozy seating, and even a few games. As the clock ticked closer to noon, employees began to trickle in. Mark's heart raced as familiar faces filled the room. "Welcome, everyone," he greeted, trying to project calmness. Conversations flowed like water, laughter replaced the usual stress, and Mark felt a transformation unfolding. I've been so overwhelmed lately, one employee confessed, her voice tinged with relief. Mark seized the opening. It's important to speak up. We're all in this together. The energy shifted and people began sharing their own experiences, stories of burnout, overwhelming workload, and the pressures of their roles. They laughed and cried, connecting on a level that Mark had never anticipated. Something remarkable was blooming. As the weeks rolled on, the gatherings grew in both number and enthusiasm. Coworkers who had once hurried past Mark started lingering to chat with him, their eyes no longer glossing over his presence. Thanks for leading these sessions, Mark. They've made a difference, someone would say, leaving Mark flushed with gratitude. Yet despite the surge in camaraderie, Mark still felt a gnawing emptiness. The executives remained distant, especially Mrs. Thompson. She had yet to attend one of the gatherings, and an opportunity to connect with her felt like a distant dream. But then one day everything changed. As Mark cleaned the bathroom after a long day, he heard the familiar click of high heels. He looked up to see Mrs. Thompson at the doorway, a look of surprise on her face. She said, startled, almost turning to leave. Mark swallowed hard. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson, I just wanted to mention that our wellness gatherings have really caught on." To his astonishment, she paused, her expression shifting. "Have they? I hadn't heard much about it." Mark felt a flicker of adrenaline. "It's been great. People are really coming together, sharing their experiences." She raised an eyebrow, genuinely intrigued. "I'd like to hear more." His heart raced. This was it, a chance to sit down with the CEO. Absolutely. As she walked away, Mark felt a whirlwind of emotions. He had a meeting with Mrs. Thompson. He spent the next few days preparing, gathering data and testimonials from his coworkers, crafting a persuasive presentation. This was his opportunity to advocate for community and wellness within the company. The day of the meeting arrived, and Mark pushed open the doors of the sleek conference room, his heart pounding against his ribcage. It was filled with polished wood and leather, a world apart from the bathroom where his journey had begun. Mrs. Thompson sat at the head of the table, an air of authority surrounding her. "Thank you for coming, Mark," she said, her eyes fixed on him. Taking a deep breath, Mark launched into his presentation. He spoke passionately about how the simple act of gathering had transformed not just the bathroom, but the entire office culture. He shared stories of people finding support and connection, of the camaraderie blossoming in an otherwise stressful environment. Mrs. Thompson listened intently, her expression shifting from curiosity to intrigue. "You've given me a fresh perspective." Mark felt a wave of hope wash over him. If we can foster this type of culture throughout the entire company, imagine how much more engaged and productive everyone could be. She nodded thoughtfully. "I see a lot of potential here, Mark. I'd like to discuss developing a company-wide initiative focusing on employee wellness." At that moment, everything shifted. The weight of recognition pressed down on him, but this time it felt empowering. No longer just a janitor, he had stepped into a role that could shape the future of the company. But as they dove deeper into the planning, uncertainty crept back in. The room felt electric, but beneath the surface, doubt threatened to unravel the momentum he had built. Suddenly, an urgent email popped up on Mrs. Thompson's screen, diverting her attention. "I need to take this. Let's continue this discussion later," she said briskly before slipping out of the room. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. He watched as she walked away, the potential for transformation slipping through his fingers. The meeting had been a turning point, but could he harness that momentum? Would he have the chance to prove himself to her and make a lasting impact? As he stared at the blank wall, uncertainty loomed. The bathroom had been a refuge, a starting point for meaningful change, but had he reached the peak of his potential? Mark's heart raced as he pondered the path ahead. He had opened doors, ignited conversations, and built connections. But what would happen next? Would he continue to be just a backdrop, or could he step into the light and stand as a beacon of change? Only time could tell, and he could feel the tension building, a fleeting chance hanging heavy in the air. The future was uncertain, and Mark was left grappling with the reality that every step forward could either solidify his presence or plunge him back into anonymity. In the echoing silence of that conference room, he realized that the journey was far from over. He had come too far to turn back now, yet the stakes had never felt higher. The promise of connection and transformation was within reach, but so too was the fear of failure. Only one thing was clear: his next move could change everything.